everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Honestly Bilal. I'm your host, Bilal Ahmed, and I'm a fourth-year medical student at the University of Toledo. And this is Honestly Bilal, the show for the aspiring ophthalmologist, where I sit down and talk with medical students who are interested in ophthalmology, residents who are training in ophthalmology, and current ophthalmologists in the field today. My guest today is Dr. Jennifer Lindsey. Dr. Lindsey is an associate professor of ophthalmology at Vanderbilt University. She's also the program director for the ophthalmology residency training program at Vanderbilt University. Dr. Lindsey went to medical school at Baylor College of Medicine and then stayed at Baylor for her residency in ophthalmology. Dr. Lindsey has won awards such as the Dennis O'Day Excellence in Clinical Instruction Award and also the Excellence in Surgical Instruction Award at Vanderbilt University. Dr. Lindsey, thank you so much for joining me. I messaged you via direct message on Twitter, and you happily agreed to do this interview with me. So I really appreciate your time and can't wait to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. This is my first podcast interview, so
oh, wow.
New territory for me. So this
Awesome.
is a little bit fun.
Very cool. Yeah, well, I'm glad to welcome you into this new world, and we'll hopefully get to learn more about you and Vanderbilt. So let's start with you first. So, your journey into ophthalmology, how did that happen? When did you get interested in the field? And just talk about, your early days and the origin story for you.
So I grew up in rural Northeast Texas. My mom was a high school biology teacher, and she actually ended up being my high school biology teacher. And she was someone who really valued education and was very supportive of me, always very encouraging. And so during her class, I really enjoyed the dissections, and she gave me a lot of positive feedback on my manual dexterity and things like that. And I enjoyed learning about anatomical systems and how they work. So that was kind of the first little seed of maybe I would enjoy medicine, maybe I would enjoy surgery. And then in college, I did some research actually on frog embryos and had to do some dissections under the microscope. And offhanded comment from my mentor, "You could be an eye surgeon." And, didn't even think about it at the time, was just like, okay, cool. That's a nice compliment. And then I did a summer program when I was at Rice University. I did a summer program at the Texas Heart Institute in Houston and got to scrub in for cardiovascular surgeries with the pediatric thoracic surgeons and Denton Cooley and hold the heart while he sewed coronaries. And so I decided that I wanted to be a pediatric heart surgeon at that point. And so went to med school. And then once I got to med school, I thought that's a wonderful specialty. But as someone who wanted to have children of my own, I decided that maybe I didn't want to spend quite that much time in training, quite that intense of a lifestyle. So I started looking into other surgical subspecialties. And I did a rotation at the Houston VA. And Ron Pelton, who is now very active in the academy, he's one of the chairs of the Orbital Gala this year. He was a resident at the time. And I got to scrub in while he did a surgery, and it was just beautiful and very efficient. And then the patient came back for his 1 week post-op and said, "Doc, I saw my grandkids' faces for the first time." Yeah. And I was like, sign me up. This is what I want to do. So that's really how I, kind of made the decision that ophthalmology was right for me. I love the, the fine dexterity that's required for the surgical procedures, and then the quality of life impact, I think, is tremendous. So.
Awesome. Very cool. I think it's just ironic too that, you're the program director and I'm asking you why you're interested in ophthalmology. I just think it's interesting. I think it's just some way to tie all the people together who I've had as guests on the show, just to show that, everybody has an origin story at one point and their interest develops. So it's kind of interesting to see how that evolves with time, from frog embryos to pediatric, heart surgery to, to where you are today. So I think it's just kind of interesting. So I know this weekend is Women in Ophthalmology. It's a virtual event this year. I know you were in attendance as well as some of your colleagues. Dr. Law was, speaking a lot, and you had a plethora of different speakers who've done a great job. And I've been texting back with some other medical students across the country who've been attending the events, and they said great things about it. Fantastic opportunity. It's a sad times we're in right now where we can't be in person, but hopefully in the future it can be. But talk about women in ophthalmology and what it means to you to be a part of that and to really be a leader in the society, and what you like to do to mentor other future female ophthalmologists and what you can pass on to them.
Right. I think Women in Ophthalmology is just phenomenal. It's a phenomenal group, and it's such a wonderful meeting. I think the thing that really sets it apart is that it's such a community. There's a real sense as soon as you arrive that you're just among a bunch of people who are very supportive of one another, who really want to encourage you to excel and achieve your best in your career.
Sure.
I think sometimes just in medicine in general, and in these competitive fields, we do get this sense of competition that we need to vie against one another for these leadership positions, and there's really none of that in women in ophthalmology. It's like we all recognize we have unique strengths and unique talents, and we really want to support one another. And one thing that I found so unique the first couple of times that I went was that they have a lot of talks on developing leadership qualities and what does it take to be a good leader. Communications classes, negotiation, things that you don't often get at medical meetings that are sort of the soft skills that are required to really advance your career. So I think that's been just phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's also
public speaking classes, things
right.
like that things you don't really think, oh yeah, I'm going to need that if I'm going to be in a leadership position. So
Right. And it's good, I think, because even though it's virtual, I feel like those are still, lecture opportunities that are so valuable because you can still be far away and learn things that you can implement later on. So, to a lot of the students who are out there, I know the opportunities to also, seek mentorship are pretty profound as well because, in a year where it's almost everything is virtual, to find ways to connect and stuff like that, I think with people you look up to or who you can relate with is so important. And, I think everybody needs a little bit of leadership skill training. And I'm in that boat. I would love to learn more from my colleagues and whoever attended the event. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that initiative grows down the road.
absolutely. And I think, as physicians, we're always going to be a leader of a team. So
Right.
you need those skills, even if you don't want to be the chairman of the department someday.
Great.
It's stuff that we all need to have in our armamentarium.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of the virtual meeting, I was a little surprised. I was a little reluctant, because it's such a community event, and part of what I love about it is seeing everyone. But
Mm.
they have done a fantastic job with the virtual format, and it's had some technical difficulties, just like
Sure.
everything does these days. But they've really set it up beautifully, and there's been so much interaction in the chat. And Sharif Fathi, who is now at Wills, who's one
Yeah.
of our Vandy grads, wrote a tweet the other day that said she has spoken up more and asked more questions in the chat format because she feels more comfortable, because she
Right.
doesn't have to stand up in front of everyone and speak. So I think it has some advantages actually to the virtual format. And I
Absolutely.
just want to put a plug in. Dr. Paul Lee is the chair at Michigan. He's been supportive of women in ophthalmology from the very beginning.
Mhm.
So men can come too. Everybody's welcome.
Awesome. I know I'd love to attend and just, check it out and, virtual or in person and support any way I can and learn from, everybody who's out there. And I think we can always learn from each other, and that's the point. So that's an awesome thing. And it's an awesome forum and opportunity. So, segueing into virtual stuff and talking about how things are we're going to be interacting virtually this year. Residency is also one of those things that's on the minds of a lot of people. There's applicants who are putting together their applications this week and finishing up, tying the loose ends here and there. And your program that you're leading is Vanderbilt University. It's a great place in Nashville. People know about it. I'm pretty sure everybody's heard of Vanderbilt. So talk about what's any exciting updates that you want to share with anybody in the audience, any medical students who are interested in Vanderbilt that you personally are also excited about.
Absolutely. Most of our improvements in our program have come from our resident feedback. We're really in tune to what the residents tell us can be better or opportunities that they'd like to pursue. So one of the big initiatives for this year is a lot of our subspecialty rotations happen during the second year of ophthalmology, or PGY3. And we got a lot of feedback from the seniors saying, I wish I could go back as a senior and do a little more glaucoma, do a little more retina when my hands are good, I've had some experience in the OR, and I can maybe do more surgically. And so we actually created a senior subspecialty rotation this year that is crafted by the senior resident. They get to have a lot of autonomy in deciding what they want to do, so they can revisit some things that maybe they won't get exposure to in their career. If they've decided to go into retina fellowship, they might go back and do a little more glaucoma just to kind of brush up on that, or they can really concentrate on retina and kind of getting prepared for that next step. And the faculty have been extremely receptive to it, and the residents have really enjoyed it. So that's one of the things that is new this year that I'm very excited about.
Very cool. So it seems like it's a culture where the residents can kind of give back their input, and you really listen to it and provides some form of feedback where it actually implements itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, the other thing that I'm very excited about that I hope will come back after COVID is our international rotation.
Right.
We actually have a twinning program with Guyana Public Health Corporation. And what that means is, sometimes when you think about international mission work, you just kind of go over and learn something and you don't really give back to that community. This program is designed to really be a two-way street among Vanderbilt and Guyana, where our residents go over and they get to learn small incision extra cap surgery.
Hmm.
And then they also teach they give grand rounds, they teach lectures to the doctors that are over there. And they really, try to give back and not only learn, but teach while they're there. And hopefully in the future, we'll have people from Guyana actually come to Vanderbilt. That's kind of in the works, but everything's slowed down a bit from COVID, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. So it's almost like there's a partnership initiative more so that it's both institutions can learn from each other, whereas it's not as one-sided. And I think that's probably the future of most global health and what most programs are kind of going towards, because that's the only way that it's beneficial for everybody for learning purposes, for training purposes. So
Exactly.
sounds like long-term solutions and sustainable solutions, and that sounds exciting. I think anybody who's interested in global health is looking for the same type of answers. And I know personally for me, I think that's interesting as well. So let's talk about, as a program director now on the other side of things, I'm an applicant, other applicants listen to this show. We're trying to figure out, what can we do to best present our best foot forward in a way where in a year where, we can't sit down with you and really get to know you in person. So what are you looking for in applications that will kind of indicate for you what you're looking for somebody who might be a great fit at Vanderbilt?
Mm-hmm. So I think, the thing that really sets Vanderbilt apart is our sense of community and our collegiality and the way that we really try to support one another.
Right.
And so we're looking for applicants that are a good fit with that, who are team players, who not only will help their junior residents and who, really have that kind of spirit of collaboration, but also who kind of know their own limits and are willing to ask for help.
Right.
I think that's very important, especially when people are starting. We have a culture of please ask. We know you're here to learn, and we don't want you to fake it till you make it. We want you to, to reach out and say, hey, I haven't encountered this before. I'd like some help. So I think that's really important. And then people who show initiative, to me, that's kind of one of the things that I like the best when I'm reading through a personal statement or something like that, something that shows me that you know how to work hard, you know what you're passionate about, and you're willing to put in the work to be able to achieve it.
Awesome. So yeah, it looks like you're looking for more comprehensively, more than numbers, more about who the person is as a person and what they can bring to the table as leaders, as team players, and all that. So I think there's a lot of very qualified applicants who I've personally gotten to know this season. So wishing them all the best. And I'm sure that they're going to find many great applicants out there who you'll want to get to know via Zoom and maybe in person too. So
Yes.
that'll be very exciting.
It's so hard because there's so many wonderful applicants. I mean, every year we
Yeah.
get, over 500 applications for 5 spots, and I wish we could take everybody because
Right.
they're really, really strong. So it's difficult, but it's fun to meet people along the way. And even people who haven't matched with us, we've often stayed in contact with through social media, and I'm kind of watching where their careers go. So that's a fun part of the process.
Awesome. And the thing is, it's almost like, I think the more I've talked to with other program directors too, especially on this forum or on my show, I think it's daunting, I'm sure, from your perspective as well. I mean, there's again hundreds of applications. It's really hard to really separate them because everybody is very qualified. And then on top of that, without meeting in person, there's this element of just kind of maybe like, you want to be risk averse. And I was actually wanting to get your perspective on this, but um, I guess I'm wondering, like, is it as a program director for yourself, and I'm wondering from as all program directors and their opinion on this, but do you feel like it's almost better to look closer at applicants who are closer to you or from your own institution, or do you feel like how is your program approaching it this year? Are you guys looking at applicants overall, or are you from a risk adversity standpoint, is that something you're concerned about or anything like that without meeting in person?
I mean, certainly it's a concern. It's something we've never done before, so we'll have to see how it goes. I think we are always looking for the best applicants from all over the nation. It may be a little more difficult process to actually figure out who those are this year. And certainly, we get very strong applicants from Vanderbilt every year.
Sure.
We have, I think, 5 or 6 students going into ophthalmology this year. And so, we know them, and that will make it a little easier for us to know, where they fit in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of things. But certainly we are very open to people from other places, and I hope they will be open to coming to see us too. I mean, I think that's going to be a really difficult thing on the applicants' part is,
Yeah.
how do I trust that these people are really who they say they are? And so I think that's where the connections really come in. And I really applaud you for what you're doing and kind of connecting people virtually and emphasizing mentorship during this time, because I think, it is a very small world in ophthalmology. A lot of us that are in academic institutions know one another very well. And so it's kind of almost going to be a secondhand thing, like, hey, do you know this medical student? He
Yeah.
seems great. Is he actually great? And same for you guys. Hey, Vanderbilt seems great. Are they actually great? What's the inside story? And so
Yeah.
I think, again, that communication, those connections are going to be vital in the process.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things where the rules kind of changed this year. I mean, we're all navigating, and something I put up on Twitter that you responded to the other day was about how ENT is kind of doing this thing where they have signaling preferences this year, where you can pick up to 5 programs that you really want to show an interest in. And you were kind enough to kind of respond and talk about how ophthalmology is not ready to do that yet. It's been a conversation that's been talked about at the AUPO and the SF match, but I think it's just interesting to see how medical education is going to change with time, especially post-COVID. So I think it's just interesting to get perspectives on these kind of issues from people such as yourself who are in leadership positions and seeing how it's going to evolve. Dr. Lindsey, I just want to get one last finishing off here is one last question from you is any advice you have this year for anybody who's applying for going forward, just whatever happens with the match, whatever happens where where applicants end up, how to make the best of wherever you go, and how to take every chance to make a learning opportunity one to last a lot, a lifelong for a lifelong opportunity to train and be the best ophthalmologist they can be.
I think, the coming back to the connections piece, the people that you work with during your residency are really going to be your family, especially during those 4 years, but well beyond into your career. And so, taking advantage of that, really getting to know the faculty in your department, the leadership, not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to really seek out mentorship, especially once you decide, kind of what you're more interested in terms of subspecialty, that sort of thing. And then recognizing that it is a really steep learning curve. You don't learn a lot about ophthalmology in medical school.
Right.
And I think, people kind of get to the end of their internship and they feel pretty comfortable, and then they start ophthalmology and it's like they're starting over again, and they get very overwhelmed sometimes. And I just would say, when you get to that point, keep in mind everybody feels that way and it's okay, and you're going to learn so much and it's going to be great. But just, when you have those difficult times, reaching out to people around you, looking for that support, and recognizing that it's not just you. Everybody kind of struggles with the newness of ophthalmology when they're going through their training.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess this a little bit of imposter syndrome hits everybody once in a while, especially in training, I mean, I know it's hit me in medical school, and I know others who have had the same experiences, but it's always nice to hear that from people such as yourself who are farther along the process than us, who can say, hey, it's going to be okay. Everybody kind of has that, that little bump there to where it's going to be a new transition. So, and we're all transitioning right now as it is. So, Dr. Lindsey, I want to thank you so much for joining me. You've done such a good job of reaching back, and I really do appreciate. This is actually the second time that I've asked you, hey, would you be willing to talk about your program or just how to help applicants? And the first time was a webinar from earlier in the summer that you happily agreed to do, and you gave such great feedback there. And so I want to thank you one more time for joining me and talking about your program, talking about your story, and I wish you all the best in your program, all the best this season with finding great applicants who will be great fits for your program.
Well, thank you. It really has been my pleasure, and I said it before, but I'll say it again. I really admire what you're doing here. I think it's a great way to connect people and to kind of make the best of a difficult situation. So I wish you all the best in your application process, and we'll look forward to seeing what you do in the future.
All righty. No pressure now. That's all right. You take care, Dr. Lindsey. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much.